Excellent. Excellent. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Snowbird Meeting Room on Shadow Spectre 11 channel. This show will be moved to the Snowbirds Meeting Room channel next week, live. So here we are, and Joe, it is all on you. Take it away.
All right. So today we have our usual guests, which is me, Voidwalker Joe, King Pain, Zug Zim and me, and Shadow Spectre 11. And then our special guest of the week is Dark Harbinger. Dark, do you want to say anything about yourself, or maybe how you got into Star Citizen, and what are your hopes and dreams of the game going forward?
Yeah, sure. I'm Dark Harbinger. I joined Star Citizen a while back after I discovered it by stumbling across it on Google. Ended up getting an invite from Voidwalker Joe, who just shot out a whole bunch of invites. I decided to take it up. I've moved up through the ranks. Been around for quite a while now. Hopes for the game is to see the Polaris come into game. I backed it a long time ago, and I keep waiting for it.
All right, awesome. So today we're going to be talking about essentially what was talked about in the ISC, or last ISC, which was Arena Commander, and then we have what was talked about on the Star Citizen Lives, which was the Montreal, or not the Montreal team, but the mission feature team mostly. And then we got a little extra as well that we want to talk about, which is the new Montreal vehicle team that they are putting together. We want to talk about that a little bit. But before we do all of that, King Pain is going to take us through what he likes to call the ship of the week, which this week it is the Mustangs. It's where we kind of just pick up a ship and talk about it for a little bit. Go ahead, King.
Absolutely. All right. So we've kind of got over the Aurora, the worst ship of all time. We've gone over the Cutter. We've gone over the Pisces.
The Titan as well.
And the Titan. Yeah, definitely gone on the Avenger, Titan, Stalker, and all those variants. And now, for today, we're going to talk about the Mustang. This is the other, I think, last and other starter ship in the line of starter ships. It is by MISC, I believe. I don't know, it's Consolidated Outlands, isn't it?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it is Consolidated Outlands Mustang, and there's a couple of variants on it as well. So you have the Alpha, Beta, Gamma, Delta, Omega, and the Alpha Vindicator. What's the difference between all these? Well, in my opinion, not a whole lot. They're fighter ships. They are a intro fighter ship that I think people should consider before getting an Aurora, if they're only going to spend that much money. And the reason is because you can hit bounties pretty good with them right out of the gate. Side note, though, that the racing variant is the Gamma. And so they kind of... And I think also the Omega is a racing variant as well. The rest of them are pretty...
It's scarcer.
Yeah, thank you. There is a cargo variant. I think that's the Alpha, but my recommendation, honestly, is to never use it as a cargo ship, because the way it's programmed is you have to get into the seat and kind of turn around, and I don't appreciate that. I find it offensive. But beyond that, hey, it's a great fighter, light fighter to start the game with, and if that's what you like doing, heck yeah, start with that one. Don't start with the Aurora. I would rather... We had a conversation about the Aurora. Like, it's a cheap ship, and imagine 300 Auroras flying at you at once. Change that over to the Mustangs. I think you'd have a more formidable force by far. So, with that being said, my take on it is it's a great first ship. I would love to see more of it. Well, rather, I would like to see more Consolidated Outlands fighters and bombers come out in the near future. But for a starter ship, the Mustang Aurora is amazing. May not got much armament out of the gate, I think it's got 2 turrets. I know it got a couple of missiles, like one of the variants has some missiles, but outside that, it's also got a really cool bubble. I love the cockpit because it's completely open to where you can see everything.
It does.
And it's pretty damn.
It does have the best field of view.
Yeah, absolutely. And with that being said, I want to let our guest kind of talk about his feelings about the Mustang. So, Dart, what do you think about the Mustang?
I've only flown it for a little bit because I went straight to using the Avenger Titan. So
Okay.
the little bits I've messed with it and loaned with it, it's fairly weak. It is a lot faster than the Aurora, so I did like that. But I just had poor experiences when I first started the game flying a weak hold ship.
Yeah, absolutely. In the context of it being a starter ship, would you agree though that you should get that over the Aurora?
Actually, I disagree. I actually like the Aurora over the Mustangs because the Aurora you can actually throw cargo boxes in. So at the beginning, doing the cargo runs is a lot easier. The small box missions versus trying to get when you're still learning to get your bearings on flying a ship. You go take on the NPCs and they just crush you.
Okay, yeah. Hey, no, that's valid. Everybody's got their own right, their own experience.
Well,
right?
the Mustang got a rework, so
You can put boxes
you
in it
can
now.
put
Well, at least
boxes
one.
in it now. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So you can have cargo in that ship now. The which one is it? The Alpha?
Yeah,
I
the
don't
Alpha would be
remember.
the only one. The Alpha would be the only one.
But the Aurora can have 2 boxes in it.
Ooh.
Actually, if you take
Maybe
the
3.
little entryway in before the cockpit, if you do the multi-box missions, you just throw them all on the floor right there, and you could do the multi-box runs.
Yeah, that's true too. But so you moved up to the Avenger because of it was a better fighter armaments, better shielding, better armor.
And I like to crash out by bed logging.
Okay. Fair enough, man. Well, thank you for sharing your experience. Let's go ahead and hit Joe. Joe, what do you think about the Mustang?
I don't care for it at all, really. I kind of same thing as Dark there. I personally, though, I have never flown it, not even once. So that comes from absolutely no personal experience. It comes from everybody else and seeing what they've done with it. I have no desire to use it. I think it's ugly. I don't know. You know, if I did somehow have one for whatever reason, I guess I would use it maybe here and there. Because there are times where it just doesn't matter. Like, I just want to get in game. I don't care what ship I have, as long as I can get to point A to point B, you know, and usually I'm doing some weird stuff, like testing some weird things. So,
Okay. So a shuttle.
yeah, as a shuttle, sure, why not? But other than that, I really don't have too much to say about it, really.
Okay, cool. Hey, Shadow, tell us about it. What do you think, bud?
I've never had a Mustang. So when they were doing the PTU test for IAE, I was able to get the Best in Show Mustang just to try it out, see what it was like, because I even got to test the Saber Raven in it, in that PTU patch. And I took it for a quick flight. It's fast. It's a fast ship. But other than that, I would just use it for a quick hop ship. You know, from one place to another, quick, in and out, boom. That's it. That's pretty much all I got on it, man.
Right on, right on. All right, well, Zook, you're last but not least, buddy. What's your thoughts on the mustard?
Here it comes. Here it comes.
I honestly thought I was going to be in the minority here. I'm surprised that I'm not. It's an absolute garbage ship. It is the worst ship in the game. Unequivocally. Without a doubt in my mind, the worst ship in the game. The only variant of the Mustang that I have unique love for whatsoever is the Mustang Delta, only because it has extra armor, and only because it has a little bit of extra armor. That is literally it. It's a little bit extra firepower, a little bit extra armor. Like the Beta has a bed in the back, right? And it's nice, but it's more expensive. The Delta in game costs 700,000 plus almost 800,000 to buy. It's like, well, if you're putting up that much money, just save an extra 200 and get the Gladius. Like just straight up,
There you go.
get more firepower, more shields, more everything for not that much more percentage wise, right? And if you get the Alpha variant, which is cheaper, like you were saying about the when we discussed the Auroras before, but having the fleet of the Auroras, it's like a newbie pilot that you're trying to just swarm with is going to be just as good in the Aurora as they're going to be in the Mustang. The only exception to that I can possibly think that I can just to counter my own point for a second here, to be devil's advocate against myself here, is if you want to have the swarm and you're expecting to try to run somebody down, because the Aurora is never going to run someone down with a Mustang can.
Yeah.
But the fact of the matter is, I just don't see that ever happening with a swarm. And even then, you're going to be paying twice to almost 3 times as much for the swarm in the first place as it works. Like it, with as far as like from a new player's perspective, there are better ships for the price point. The Roar is almost as good for a good bit less. From an Oryx perspective, buying it for other people, I'd rather go ahead and give the extra 200,000 and give him a Gladius, right? There's a whole, like every situation I can think of, from somebody buying the game from the first start to buying the ship for others. I can never think of a reason to give someone a Mustang.
Okay.
Like it, and I will say this much: I would disagree with Joe. I do think the ship looks good.
Okay.
But
fair enough.
It's just not as nimble as the Aurora. It's just as nimble as the Arrow, and the Arrow has more firepower. Like there's nothing it really does exceedingly well to justify its cost. And so, yeah.
Yeah.
Did you guys know about the crossover that they did with AMD to make a variant that kind of like with the Saber Raven?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I remember
the
reading
Gamma.
about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, is it the Gamma? Okay. Yeah.
Mhm.
I see. I wouldn't mind having that just for the rarity, but yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm not digging out that out of
Collector's
the
item.
hanger.
That's kind
Yeah.
of
I will say this, in my opinion, I do like it over the Aurora, but I would never suggest anybody keep it very long, like Harbinger did. You like upgrade it. You get again the 3 starter ships that I recommend anybody go into is either a Pisces, a Cutter, or an Avenger. Those are the 3 starter ships I recommend anybody go in. I do not recommend the Aurora, and I do not recommend a Mustang. If you're going to have it very long.
if you start off with the Aurora and you go to other ships, cargo or otherwise, you could still have a legitimate use for the Aurora with other ships as you play the game. If you start with the Mustang and you go into any field of activity, right, and you upgrade your combat ship or your cargo ship or whatever it is, you'll have almost no use for the Mustang.
Yeah.
It has the least utility out the door.
Yes, it does. That is very true. The only Mustang I would tell anybody to retain would be the racing ones, because now we're getting racing in game. That would be the only ones of the Mustangs I would recommend anybody ever keep if they like racing and ships. But even then, you still have other ships that we'll get to later that outpace it. So, yeah. With that being said, we're going to go ahead and move on from the ship of the week and tune in next week until I decide what that's going to be. But you can guarantee it's going to be a $60 and above ship. So we are moving out of. Yeah.
Thank God.
Yeah.
Thank God we're moving to better ships.
Moving on to better and bigger things. So
Okay.
Joe, I'm gonna hand off to you, buddy.
All right. So next we're going to talk about some of the arena commander stuff that they talked about in the ISC. So, kind of what they talked about was that they have formed a new team called the Arena Commander Feature Team. It used to be headed by Arena Commander used to be handled by the vehicle teams, which
Yeah.
they're busy with other priorities, and so Arena Commander just wasn't getting any love at all. The only things that we really got was they kind of did like a polished pass on the two dogfighting maps that we had, and really just kind of brought in the new the flight mechanics, the updated HUD and everything like that. Um, I don't remember what patch that was though, but that wasn't too far in the past. Um, Other than that, they've talked about saying that they want to completely update all the legacy code to building blocks, and so they're going to be kind of updating the front end of all of that, so the menus that you see and everything like that, and there's going to be a lot of quality of life improvements. But that kind of goes into our first question here. I want to know what everybody's thoughts are on the new team and what it means for coming improvement. Starting with Dark.
I think it's going to take a little bit for the new team to actually kick in, so I still don't think we'll see any major changes, not for probably the first quarter or two. But from the sounds of it, from what I got out of it, it was that they were slowly implementing passes and patches that they could to it. So it wasn't like an upfront, always working on it.
Okay.
Yeah, they were kind of, whatever big changes were happening in the PU, they were kind of just transferring it over, but it still had a lot of the legacy code that was kind of getting in the way. And so a lot of the bugs and issues were kind of just sitting there. But what about you, Shadow? What are your thoughts on the new team and what it could mean for coming improvements?
I barely use Arena Commander. I went into it once just to see what it was like, and then I went to the racing aspect of it. I think it'll be good for, especially just like they were saying in the ISC and the SCO, that you get to, if you're gonna go for practice, speed, to refine your skills. You don't want to keep dying in the PU and having to go all the way back. It makes sense. And if when they're using the PU assets into Arena Commander that they're going to be using, it's a great asset for that. Now, as far as learning how to use a fighter, get the feel of it, for everything that you're going to be doing in the PU. And I recommended it to quite a few people to go in there, take a ship that you're going to be flying a lot, that you're going to be doing combat in, take it in there, get used to flying it, learn about it, practice, and then you'll feel more confident when you come into the PU and know your ship. So it's an asset. It always has been. Just a lot of people weren't doing anything with it because it's so outdated. But now it's going to get better. So I probably will get into it and try it and see how it feels. I may pull my Gladius out of Hawk and take it in there, So, yeah, it's going to be good. That's how I feel about it.
Yeah, I think just the simple reason on why people kind of dropped off from Arena Commander is the fact that there's just a lot of issues with it, and it's just old. So once they start making those quality of life improvements, and making it easier for friends to get in there and try everything out, then I think more people will be in there. But what about you, King? What are your thoughts
Sorry,
on it?
just to interject 1 second. New patch notes came out for the PTU,
Okay.
so just letting everybody know.
Cool.
What I hope, I'm glad that they're coming out with something to help with the part of the game. That's fine with me. I'm not an arena commander person. But to answer the question of improvements, I hope that they really bring better gameplay to it to ensure that the scoring works right and stuff like that. Because I have noticed a lot of patches that deal with how like scoring's working and how well people do and stuff like that, and it's just never been up to snuff. But I think what ultimately Star Citizen will benefit from it is they'll have isolated data per ship or ships that are allowed in that to see how they function in combat and maybe be able to translate that into the PU and PTU eventually. But I did play Star Marine though, so it's your classic PvP FPS thing. Definitely can use that for data in the PTU and PU and PTU. The biggest problem.
I've never played it because when I went, nobody was there. So that's another thing I'd like to try. Sorry to interject.
That's also extreme. It's way more buggy than Arena
yeah,
Commander is too.
super
So
buggy.
it's a
Super buggy.
terrible experience most of the time.
Yeah, I really hope they fix that because I would play that if it was not so desyncy. Like it, you remember? What patch was it? I can't. It was 3.14, I think, or like you would be desynced with everybody on the ground when you were trying to do like ground missions.
Yeah.
So that's how bad it gets. But yeah, that's me. That's just all I got on Arena Commander.
All right. What about you, Zook? Your thoughts on the new Arena Commander feature team and your thoughts on improvements coming
Be
with
right
it?
back.
Things that I really like that's coming. They're saying they're going to give us the ability to make private lobbies, right?
Yep.
Which can make this a proper tool for us to use, right?
Mm-hmm.
Before, you had to get a game, hope you got a game, and hopefully, if you want to do anything with your friends or with your org, to use it as a tool, hope that basically you're the only one in the lobby, hopes it stays that way, right? Now, if I can make a private lobby, I can control who's in it, and I can decide who's in it to use it as a tool. It needs a lot of makeup work. It needs a lot of fixer upper. It doesn't feel like the PU feels anymore. And when I first started playing, I thought it was supposed to be very similar. I went in there and managed to get a few games and realized it's not the same. The loadout isn't the same. The equipment doesn't work the same.
Mm-hmm.
And I was very disappointed when I went to the PU and things worked differently. The second feature that I like that is giving me some hope as far as Arena Commander is concerned is the fact that they're plugging it into the P system universe. They're talking about the racetrack, but they're putting it on the planet. They're bringing in the racetracks from the universe. When you load up a race in Arena Commander, you're going to be loading up where that racetrack is in the verse, right? Which means anything done in the verse will be automatically brought over to Arena Commander, which means, again, theoretically, right? We'll see how it turns out. Arena Commander should stay consistently the same experience as the Persistent Universe, just minus death of a spaceman and minus the prep time, which is what you need for practice, which is what you need for working together, which is what you need for more of the complex activities. I think they're heading in the right direction. I don't want to get too excited until those changes come out, because we don't know when 319 is coming, and we don't even know if it's going to be part of 319.
Yeah, we don't know when it's going to be yet. I think we'll get a slow trickle of the quality of life improvements. So,
Well,
um,
didn't they say that when 319 does come, that Arena Commander was getting a rework with that patch?
Part of the rework would be part of that patch. They didn't specify how much of the rework is going to be part of that patch.
Okay.
because there's a lot they got to do, and
Yeah.
then so they want to, what was it? They wanted to add, I think it was 12 tracks. Yeah, 12 new tracks, at least 12 new racing tracks. Um, and then
UI.
for the dog fighting, they were gonna add one new track, or one new map, which is the Jericho Station.
But not to mention redoing the UI completely.
Yeah, yeah. So there's that, and then the just fixing Star Marine and doing all the basic bug fixing, alone. That's all big stuff too. Um, but yeah, if they can get Star Marine and Arena Commander to actually function better than the PU, to the point where we can get in there and have a really good time, and actually, it'd be worth practicing there. I think people in orgs are going to be spending more time in there because than the PU, because most of the time people are practicing for something. Like there's a lot of practicing for Jumptown Siege, trying to get your guys to actually coordinate together as a squad, that kind of thing. So yeah.
Product communication is like so key here. Like that's one of my group's main things that we really focus on is communicating and knowing what each other's going to do before you get down there,
Mhm.
and not just planning it, but being familiar with your teammate, and when they say something, understanding what that means, right?
Yeah.
And setting it up and getting practice in the PU can take 30 minutes to an hour to get it set up, and then you get going, and then the game crashes, right? So you never get that repetitive over and over and over and over again practice with what does this guy mean? What do I mean? Does he know me better? Do I know him better? You can get that now with Star, or you'll be able to hopefully get that with Arena Commander if what they're trying to do is finished and is successful in its quality. Um, it sounds good. I like the fact that they're heading in the right direction. I think they see something that can be worked on. I mean, ultimately, I think what it is, they see something that can be worked on that can be useful because they're wanting to make Death of the Spaceman more painful. Now that they have salvaging in the game, they want that to be more punishing. In which case, they need some place to allow us to practice. And two, this should be, in comparison, when comparing between the two or between the many, this is probably something that can be very easy to do while they wait for server meshing to be completed.
Okay. So it looks like before we move on here, we can read some questions here in the chat. Let's see. So Ken, he was saying, so this is kind of going back to the starter ships. He says, I've never tried the Mustang. My starter package was 100i back in July during the Free Fly event during the Foundation Festival. Yeah, most people haven't tried it at all. So
Yeah.
usually, when it comes to the starter ships, I don't think it really matters what you choose, because
Yeah.
either way you can make decent money fairly quick to
Yeah.
upgrade to something else.
Well, I
so.
started with the 100i Ken, so I I chose that ship specifically for the refueling capability, and that's pretty much what I started with. And I love that ship. I have that ship to this day, and will not get rid of it. It's a quick, fast ship to do what I want to do, get from one place to another. It's got great range, and love it.
All right.
Yeah.
So, for anybody else that wants to ask questions, just type question in all caps, and then that way we could see it easy, and then type your question out. After that, try to make your question pertain to whatever we're talking to in the moment, and at the end of the topic, we'll go ahead and answer the question. But kind of in the same vein as Arena Commander here, we'll talk about racing a little bit. Um, so when it comes to racing, right, they made some changes. Like they changed it instead of from always flying in 0G, that if you are, on a map where you're in Atmo, it's going to feel and fly like you're in the atmosphere. And it's going to be a little bit more realistic to that. Let's see. But yeah, so a question, the first one, how do you guys feel about any of the racing changes? And how do you guys feel about the atmosphere flight as it is now within the PU? Do you think it'll be a good way to practice? Dark, you want to start?
I do all my testing and stuff in the solo free fly in Arena Commander. It's also where I test out all of my keybinds to make sure they're working right. So
Yep.
that's just the best place to do it because it's really easy to take off or accidentally clip something and blow your ship up in the standard PU and PTU. So at least in free fly in the Arena Commander, you reset after 10 seconds, 15 seconds.
Yeah, I see a lot of people when all the new ships come out, the first thing they do is bring it out in the Arena Commander if it's available, and test it out in there first. But oh yeah, Dark. Also, don't hesitate if anybody else is talking, but you have something to kind of add on to that. You're free to kind of add on to it. Shadow, what are your thoughts on the changes to racing and atmospheric flight being added?
As a former Falcon 4 pilot, where I was doing constant atmospheric flight all the time, it's going to make a big difference. And when they put the surfaces on the ships, the ailerons, the flaps, and all that good, the rudders and stuff like that, it is going to be very, very interesting to fly. Especially if, see, this is the thing. I'm so used to trying to keep the ship in the air, I'm not used to the thrusters, if you get what I'm saying. So this is going to be an interesting experience for me to take that on, learn about it, and get more experience. And see, I love to race anyway. I love ground racing. Ship racing is totally different. It's a different animal, especially when there is no atmosphere or low atmosphere. So that's where you get. That's one thing I loved about Arena Commander when I did try it. It gave me the option to get the feel of the ship while I was flying it in a race and low atmosphere or no atmosphere. So yeah, I think it's going to be cool. I'll learn a lot from it. So I will get in there once they set that up. My thought.
Okay, King, what are your thoughts on racing and the changes to atmospheric flight going into
I think they're in the right direction. I think they're definitely pushing more towards how gas affects your flight. Obviously atmosphere, right? Gas, atmosphere. The thicker the atmosphere, heavier the gravity, the slower you're going to fly. The more friction there is, and I think that's wonderful. I mean, think about it. 0G's like you're underwater, but there's no gravity. And then if you're on a planet that's small, you'll fly fast. But you got to remember, in space, you have three-dimensional direction that you have to worry about, whereas in atmosphere, you have to fly forward almost all the time and keep your nose pulled up so you can keep right in the air. And so I think currently the current iteration is in the right direction, but I still think there's a lot more work that needs to go under the hood to make it right. Yeah, that's basically my 2 cents on that.
So to jump off your that point for Payne, I agree that I think it's heading in the right direction. I think this is good work. I hope they don't go too far too deep into this immediately. I hope they're just laying the groundwork, and because when master modes come into play and they put in proper uh, engines overheating and thrusters overheating mechanics into the game, piloting and plan is going to be way different. As you said, you're going to need a lot more consistent forward momentum to keep your, anti-gravity thrusters, your bottom thrusters from overheating. You're going to start relying on that air to lift you up more than you will with thrusting, and that will change the type of ships you bring to each one of the racetracks. Like there may be a different ship you bring to the one around Yella than the one you bring to the one on Lorville. I hope they don't go too far into the balance yet until that's in the game. I hope they're just building the main structure. I hope they're just doing the main missions and getting it functional, getting the mission type in the game, and I hope they leave it at that. Two, for one, I'm not a big racer. I like racing, but I'm not a big racer, and I still want other content in the game. As well. And two, if they do any work they do balancing in right now, will be completely thrown out as soon as we get done with customizing engines, different engine types, cooling, master modes, like the stuff that goes into balancing that gameplay loop. None of it's in the game right now, so I hope they don't go too deep right now.
I don't think they will. I think it just seems like, at least for Arena Commander, they're just gonna essentially copy and paste what's in the PU, put it in the Arena Commander, so that way they both match equally, and then from there, whatever changes they make, they're gonna update both at the same time. That's what it seems
I
like.
hope you're right. I hope you're right,
Yeah.
and that's what keeps me encouraged. Is that's what they were saying, and that's what it seems like they're doing. They're just that way. If anything happens in the PU, it's automatically in Arena Commander, and that gives me hope.
Yeah, they said it was pretty easy to do that, so I'll trust them on that. So,
Is it
so
developer? Is that easy to do, Payne?
is it Mr. Developer Man?
Yeah, copy and paste. You all know how to do Control C, Control V. It's all good.
Yeah, there you go.
Really, it's that easy.
Yeah.
I just kind of hope that they don't go a little bit overboard. And I'd like to see some changes once they get it implemented, like the differences between like the Razor and the M50. The M50 always has the larger engines. I'd like to see it a lot faster in a straight line than the M50 or the Razor.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I can
100%.
agree with that.
So that there's nice differences between the ships while you're going through the courses.
And you know what? They need to pull the M50 out from combat missions. That's not a combat ship. Let's not do bounties with that, please.
Actually, it's a combat ship.
No.
It's actually a deep space police.
It's an interceptor. It's an interceptor.
It's a gizmo. Well, of course, the Master Race still hasn't come out, so we don't know what it's like.
It's not a fighter; it's an interceptor. But so it's that gameplay isn't in the game yet, but it's supposed to be out there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, hey, Ken posted a question here.
Yep. I was going to get to that. Go ahead.
Okay, cool. Oh, yeah. So Ken Claudio asked, I was never interested in racing. Will my racing improve my flight handling in a way that will help me be a better pilot for PvE combat? I'm currently an all fighter at combat. Actually, let's start with Dark on this one. Dark, what's your response?
Well, you have to learn to dodge and kind of strafe the attack runs coming at you. So if you can take tighter turns and fly lower through the tree lines, you could use that as cover. So I think it would help quite a bit.
Yeah, I think that anything that helps you learn your ship is only going to benefit you in the long run. So, yeah, try to learn some racing. Joe?
Yeah, racing is the best way to really learn how your ship handles, to really feel it out. You know, um, just the little spots on the ship that you really can feel, kind of like in real life in a car. Except on your mouse and keyboard. You start to feel the subtle differences between each ship, and you can learn to exploit them to your best abilities. And I think it'll really shine when Master Mode starts coming out, and you need to, really start thinking about the whole flight or fight that you're gonna get into. Where okay, you're gonna start thinking in your head like, how am I gonna escape this? Or how am I gonna fight? So, yeah, I think it's great for that.
Cool.
And to jump on that for a second, to put my Star Citizen shield hat for a moment. One of the great things about Star Citizen is because almost any ship is for the most part viable. What ships you fly is largely up to what your preferences are and how you fly them and how you prefer to fly them. And the only way to know that is to fly it. And it may take you a long time to get familiar with your ship. There's a guy in my org who can pull off maneuvers in a freelancer because he flies that ship all the time. He can pull off maneuvers in a freelancer better than a lot of people can in a Mantis or even a Mustang, just because he's hyper familiar with that ship. Racing is one of the best ways of getting familiar time because it is a relatively safe way of getting time behind the stick. Anything you can do to get behind the stick of your ship, if you want to get good at that particular ship, is always going to be helpful. Always helpful.
Yeah, absolutely.
Especially since it's a lot harder to turn the ship when you're going above that safe combat maneuver speed. When you start hitting that red line, your ship drags and drifts really hard.
Yeah.
The M50.
And Ken is talking about the time restraints and being overeager when he has game time. I mean, when it comes to like the timing for racing and stuff like that, if the racing is not something you're really into, I would just go in and do it in free flight. Go ahead and just. I've seen videos from really good dogfighters out there, like Jonathan Winters. I've seen some of his videos. If you want some good, like very well explained dogfighting videos, tutorials, definitely go look him up. Really good. Really kind of dumbs it down for people like me, where it's hard to kind of comprehend some of it. He does a lot of training with asteroids, where he'll pick an asteroid out in the asteroid belt, and he will just practice, barrel rolls and keeping on target, and just flying around it. And it's kind of like one of those things where you can totally make your own practice runs, either within the PU or free flight, where if you did run into something or die, you can quickly just reload back in without having to worry about anything in the PU. So, or you could just practice dogfighting within Arena Commander itself. With friends, they got a mode on there where you can just fight your friends. So that's pretty fun. I definitely suggest that one.
One of my personal favorite things to do, especially when I get a new ship, is I ask some of my orc mates and say, "Hey, get in your Gladius in whatever your ship you're in or whatever, put distortions on, and we just have a massive distortion fight. First one to get shut, first one to get shut down loses, right?
Mm-hmm.
That way, you're not risking death of spaceman, you're not risking dying. You leave just outside of the armistice zone of a station, and just do your dogfight, and then you come back, right? Like anything to get stick time that pushes you to the limits, and especially if you can find to go against somebody who is experienced, an experienced pilot, an experienced fighter, and they can give you real time feedback on your piloting characteristics, saying, "Hey, you're being a little bit too aggressive in your speed. Hey, you're not turning enough. You're not coming at the right angle." Like,
Mhm.
there's a lot of YouTube videos, especially Avenger One's one of them, that has a very good breakdown as far as the techniques of how to fly. But that's a very academic knowledge, and you have to get stick time behind your ship so that you can learn your ship.
Yeah, yeah. You need to know physically how it handles for you.
Yeah.
Not how it handles for somebody else. Because you can watch tutorials all day and still not really comprehend what's going on in your head.
Think about like a car, right? If you're a car you've driven for 5 or 6 years, when you're driving that car, it feels like an extension of your body. You get that
Mhm.
emotional feeling because you are so familiar with the car that every little bump that isn't there normally, you notice it, but every bump that's there normally, you don't notice it. You
Mhm.
are so familiar with that car that it feels like an extension of your body. You will have to achieve that same concept with your ships. And when you manage to do that with your ships, you will become a better fighter even without practicing fighting. So if you do low flies, if you do flying around an asteroid, if you do racing, and you just gotten so familiar with your ship that you know what your ship is capable of and how to achieve it, an academic knowledge of fighting makes you a really good fighter because you're in the ship that you know how to maneuver.
Yeah,
And that's your
I
best
think
bet.
I think just the biggest issue, the reason why a lot of people are kind of in the dark about a lot of this and are kind of intimidated is because CIG at the moment, because of all the issues with the game in Arena Commander, they make it really hard for you to connect with your friends, get in and actually practice, be, and actually get in there fast. And, uh, when you die, it's not necessarily that easy to just reconnect right now because there's just so many issues. So I mean, I think the reason why I stopped playing Arena Commander is because there was a good stint where it was working pretty well, but then all of a sudden with one of the patches, I found it impossible to get everybody in the same server as each other. So we just kind of just stopped. But I mean, if they fix those issues and make it easy for people to get in there and practice, I think we'll see a good amount of people kind of caught up to speed. I think the universe will get just a little bit more deadlier than it is now. All right, well, we'll go ahead and move on to the next question. I want to ask you guys, what would you guys like to see added to racing in general, right? So, um, even if you're not a big racer, I know some of us aren't. Um, I never really was a fan of racing until these real updates because I mean, I just want to try it now. Is there anything that you could see maybe benefiting that could be added to racing that could also benefit everything else that's not racing? Like, that's in the video. Uh, Dark. You want to start?
I would like to see like hazardous racing maps. You always have the stuff around Grimhex that they always talk about doing the racetracks around Grimhex.
Yep. Yeah.
I'd like to see like the laser mines and stuff be put on the racetracks. I think that'd be a
Oh
fun
man.
thing to see. Hazardous racetracks with obstacles and higher risk, high reward.
Hmm.
There you go.
Yeah, that would be amazing. They recently brought up. I don't. It was recently. I I don't know which episode it was. I think it was in the last ISC. I think when they were talking about 318, they brought up racing briefly, and they talked about Grimhex, and they're like, "When's Grimhex racing thing coming up?" And they just kind of they're like, "Oh, we haven't forgotten about it. It's just we can't tell you anything," or something like that, somewhere along those lines. So they haven't forgot about it. So that's good at least. But Shadow, what are your thoughts on anything that you want to see added to racing that could benefit anything else in the future?
Well, eventually, from what I gather, they're going to be adding ground races with time trials. That's my thing. I love ground racing, and yeah, I love ship racing too a little bit. I'm more of a ground racer than I am a ship racer. So that's the one. That's the thing that I want to see come into
Okay.
it.
You heard they talked about putting a new ground map for they're making a new
Yes.
dynamic racing event,
Yes.
and out of those maps, there's going to be one map that's all ground racing. To
Yep.
be clear,
Yep.
that's pretty cool.
That, and next year I plan on entering the Daymar Rally. So
I might join you on that one.
I'm
I don't
going
think
for
I'll be any good, but we'll
it.
see.
I'm gonna go for it.
Pull a Jackson, flip the vehicle like 5 feet out from the starting line.
Is that what he did?
Yeah.
Oh man. What about you,
Yeah.
King? Any thoughts on
Yeah.
any
I got
additions that you would like to see in racing that affects everything else?
two things: a racing league, an actual in-game league that you could join. Like you have to go to like a city and register for a league.
That might be that might be a part of the dynamic racing event.
Probably
I think
It'd be
that's.
cool.
I think
It'd
those
be-
are out there, Mike.
not in the context I'm thinking.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
I'm
like you
thinking-
have like your
Go ahead.
combat reputation and your box mission reputation. You have your racing reputation that you got to build up before you can race into the bigger races for bigger prizes.
Right, like you got to build it up. Yeah, exactly. And then that would unlock, say, like you would unlock a couple of paths. Like path 1 would be just standard like ground racing, in vehicles, like a PTV or another ground like STV or something. And then you can unlock ship racing pathing, which gives you the ability to do sprints, laps, or hazardous, or whatever. And then you can have like this granddaddy rally that you could do in a league that isn't on one planet. It's a triathlon. You have to drive, get in a ship, fly to another planet, get off, drive another vehicle to finish the race.
That's already in the lore. That's already in the lore.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. Like, I would love to see that in game. That's what I'm saying.
And you know
That's
what
my-
system it's in?
Huh?
Do you know what
What is
system that race is in?
No,
In
I
the lore?
don't. What is
It's
it?
in Pyro.
Nice. Maybe that's the one we saw Jax crash in.
Yeah, it's
But
like
yeah.
it's like a super hazardous long-term race. In the lore, that was the whole purpose of the Mercury Star Runner, was like a ship that can do cargo and also do, it's so nimble and so fast they can also do this race. And Crusader put their higher class ship into this quasi pirate race and just like smoked everybody.
Oh,
Well-
that's great.
Well, this Mercury Star Runner was in a race in lore, and it won 3 or 4 times on the most hazardous race that they could come up with, and
Yeah.
that is why the Mercury Star Runner is the king of that particular race.
Well, they're trying to emulate the Millennium Falcon. I mean, I think about like the Kessel Run and the good stuff from Star Wars. So yeah,
Yeah, that's mine.
okay. Zook, what about you?
Honestly, there's not much I want them to add right now. There's a lot of things that a lot of these guys have mentioned that I would completely agree with. Hazardous stuff, more complicated, longer races, races that require you with one points. Especially for a lot of those more advanced features. I am perfectly fine with waiting until engine cooling thruster overheating, and master modes are all in the game. Like or custom engines, just a lot of that stuff is in the game, right? I don't think we need any more than that right now,
Mhm.
honestly, because the things that would make those races more of a I'm going to figure it out. Like for example, I'm going to tune my M50 differently going to Lorville than I'm going to tune my M50 going to around Yellow, right? Or going around Grim Hex or something like that. Like
Well, you're
the
talking customization, definitely.
yeah, the customization is where the ship customization is where I think a lot of the fun will be and a lot of the skill as far as the prep will be. But a lot of that's not in the game and probably not going to be in the game for the next year at least. So I would be fine if racing largely left the same for now. I'm, I'm I don't know what they should add or what they could add other than what they've mentioned already.
Yeah, it's one of those things where we don't really know too much what affects what, as far as if they added this or that, we don't know what that would affect and whether it'd be negative or positive to the current flight model or whatever, right? So
Don't know. We don't know.
yeah, that's the issue. So we kind of have to just let CIG do their thing and then figure out as these things come out, whether it's a good or bad.
Well,
Yeah.
as a point where Zook was talking about master modes in a racing ship, that's going to be interesting. That's going to be interesting to try.
Mhm.
So I can't wait to try that in a racing scenario. And put that in Arena Commander, that would be the definite training that I would love to have to learn about and then use it in the PU for scenarios where I need to, say, escape or,
Mhm.
do certain things. That I would love to see. Just my thought.
I would be willing to bet that when they get master modes, customized thrusters, and engineering where you can tweak your engines to your heart's content or to a certain degree, it would not surprise me if there aren't um, streamers on Twitch who are making builds and are just streaming them, customizing a build, doing a few laps, changing it up, doing a few laps, just as a community type of thing.
Oh yeah,
Uh,
Oh,
Yeah.
like that,
well,
I could see that level of detail being absolutely amazing, and just having an entire community built up around building the ships for the racing. That way, it's not just racing; it's which ship is best for the racing, and then there'd be debates about well, no, this particular manufacturer kind of sucks for an atmosphere, but in space, oh yeah, any number of
Mhm.
different things, right? But yeah, as far as like in-game game mechanics, other than those obvious pieces, I think we're in good shape now.
Okay. Something that they're adding now. I'm gonna ask everybody this question all at once, and anybody can kind of jump in because it's kind of a small question. It has to do with the new timers that they're adding, where you can add into keybinds, have a little timer up. I want to ask you guys, like, what would you guys use that timer for other than racing? Because there's a lot of different applications that we could use this that could go into, just testing things in game, testing out, I don't know, weapons, vehicles, um, you know, uh, maybe testing out, see how long does it take you
to quantum from
to
one
make
place
make
to
money a
another.
certain way.
To,
What was that?
testing engines to see how much time it takes to go from one place to
Hmm.
another. Those type of
Yeah,
things. Yeah.
planning the best routes
Yep.
for certain missions.
Things that I would
Uh,
be using them off the bat easily. One, if I'm in a big operation, I would kill an enemy ship, a hammerhead, an A9, a Hercules, whatever it is, right? I'm gonna have someone put a timer, and then let me know when their timer hits the 14-minute or 20-minute that minimum claim timer is for that ship.
Mhm.
I know we're safe from that ship until that timer gets to that certain point.
There you go.
Uh,
Yeah.
there's
Pretty good.
timers as far as like, can we clear a bunker in a certain amount of time? Are we running behind? As far as the ground team is concerned, one of the biggest pains as running a multi-team org event is having one group in one voice comm and one group in another voice comm. And if I know that Alpha Team can clear a bunker or do a certain activity in 5 minutes, I won't have to constantly be checking in. Alpha Team lead, what's your status? Alpha Team lead, what's your status? It's very nerve wracking as a when you're not in their audio group listening to their conversation, but you're also responsible for making sure they taken care of. At the 3, 4, 5 minute mark, then I can start popping in. Hey, how's it going? You having any trouble? Is it we're good yet? At 6 minute mark, I know for sure I need to step in. There's a lot of planning that can go into play. That I can give ETAs on how fast my ship's getting loaded. I can give ETAs on how fast it takes me to get to a facility. Basically, anything that could be time sensitive benefit with a timer. Like literally, trading, quant mining, damn near anything can be benefit
Yeah.
if you're worried about efficiency and organization.
Yeah, this is definitely one of those features I think that's going to be overlooked for a while, because people didn't really think too much about it right now, but here, people are going to start realizing here pretty soon that you can use it for just about everything to make anything better.
I mean, look at once they get like engine overheating, take Jumptown for an instance, because right now all the Hercules that come in and bomb Jumptown constantly, they're not going to be able to sit there and hover forever in atmosphere like they do right now.
Yeah.
Eventually,
yeah.
you could pop a timer and be like, all right, he's been there for 3.5 minutes. His engines are going to overheat. He's got to go forward for the next 2 minutes. Now we can raid the bunker. We can go try to take on all the people that are blocking all the drugs.
Absolutely. It's going to be great for orgs, org leaders and, the people that really kind of like overlook a lot of people. They can use all these as a tool to, guide their guys into
And
the right situations.
And one of the really cool things is you can have multi-pronged events or activity that are timed together where you don't have to like verbally say this is complete. So you can say, let's say you're rating a player controlled bunker, you're going to Korea, right? When you start the event, you can say at the 2 minute mark, fighters are engaged in combat. They have their attention. At the 2 minute 30 second mark, a drop ship's going to come in, right, with crew to land on Korea and take Korea, retake Korea, whatever, right? If you have that practice and have that timing down, everyone can like a stopwatcher at the beginning of that event and say and mark, and now everyone has a marker on their screen that knows exactly when they need to go in without even having to communicate, so that the fighter team can focus on being a fighter. They don't have to be team coordination, right? I mean, the tools are almost infinite that is there. That ability would give.
Yeah, I completely agree. So our next topic is going to be the mission feature team. I know this is one topic that King is kind of excited for, so can't wait to hear what he has to say about it. So
He's ready.
Something I want to say about the mission feature team, kind of what was brought up during the live, was they essentially work on pretty much all the dynamic events. So like Siege, Xeno Threat, Jumptown kind of thing. They've also worked on the prisons, the prison missions, time trials, and the new updates to Korea. So they work on like the building blocks and the mechanics of certain missions, and then once they made the mechanics for it, they hand it off to the people that actually expand upon those missions and add in like lore and story elements to it. Yeah, other than that, I think what they said was that they are one thing I found pretty interesting about it was that they're working on the ability to defend your ship without getting a crime stat. So I kind of wanted to throw that out there too.
Yeah, I like
Uh,
that.
Yeah, so I really want to know what they're going to do to kind of support that.
Because
I'm pretty excited.
Yeah, because that is a major thing.
Mhm.
You know, you get jumped, right? They board your ship. Okay? I'm going to shoot somebody. I'm just going to say it. But I shouldn't get a crime stat for defending myself and my vehicle. So
I think we could all agree on
I
that.
can't wait for that, man.
Mhm.
My thought.
All right, King, I'll let you start off with this one. Just tell us what you think about the mission feature team and what they've put out so far, and how you think it's going to go in the future.
So I think the mission feature team has absolutely grown over the last several years. I think they have matured in such a way that their ability to create content has just gotten better. And at the end of the day, that's what's going to happen. It's just going to get better over time. And to answer the what was the first question? Did you already ask the dynamic events? I'm sorry. No, you just asked how I feel about them, right?
Yeah, but you could also talk about the dynamic events too. That's fine.
Yeah, it kind of goes hand in hand. Like I watched them drop these dynamic events like Xenothreat, Ninetales, and Siege of Orison, and each time, and I've also seen the early iterations of these things and then the current iteration of these things, and also who's the guy that gives you the Kill the Idris mission? I forget his name.
Miles Eckhart.
Miles
Sorry.
Eckhart missions. Yeah. So you can tell the maturity on how the missions have progressed, and how well they're approaching these missions. A lot of stuff they have is single stage missions. For example, go and kill something, go and find this body, go investigate this wreckage, right? But specifically getting it down to the dynamic events, what I have been impressed with is the fact that they were able to they didn't copy and paste the same event for each one of their dynamic events. For example, Siege of Orison is a ground mission that you happen to use flying to get to other places. I think that's really cool. I thought that was kind of brilliant. I would love to see more of that elsewhere. Instead of flying, you may have to use ground vehicles to get to another location. Or siege a location with tanks. That would be awesome. Is it Xenothreat was the one that brings the Idris in to attack the IHS Jericho?
Yes.
Where you have to...
Yep.
That's an amazing mission. That is by far my favorite.
Yes.
As far in space. In space, that is my favorite. Because you have to go all the way over to this spot, collect things, and then fly it all the way back.
It's very unique, yeah.
Very unique, very awesome, and I think that we should look more forward to things that kind of bring that dynamicness to it. And then there's the Ninetales one. I have yet to compete successfully in the Ninetales.
Which one?
It's the one where you go to the Lagrange station and then you have to like kind of warp out just a little
The
bit.
lockdown.
Yeah, lockdown. Okay.
I forgot about that one.
That's my favorite one.
It's a good one.
Besides Xenothreat.
Yeah, it's a good one. If for me, for space missions, Xenothreat's my jam, but both are really great, But my absolute favorite dynamic event, Siege of Orison, because I feel like it's easier to gather people on FPS mission and especially with 318's 90K atmosphere as opposed to 150.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
But that's what I see the mission feature team doing in the future, though, is getting more creative with their missions. Like I mentioned a bit ago, like ground dynamic events would be amazing. Say like on Hurston or Daymar or something, where there's a castle. Let's just call it a castle for argument's sake, and you have to take tanks because you can't get bombers in because their iffies are too. There's too many iffies that they tear down ships, right? But you have to take tanks in and wipe out their iffies. That would be really cool, and then you can bring planes in to bomb. That would be awesome. I would love to see stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's.
I think y'all missing the most important bit here. Like the most important bit they got from that ISC, right? Or sorry, SCL, excuse me, the SCL is a single line that one of the developers said that, the Korean mission was not for them. That launch was not the Siege of Korea, the Korea mission. That was the players attacking here module, right? That means that same kind of concept everywhere from mission to the objectives to the mission that you can accept, a variation, everything like that can be applied to, could be potentially applied to a bunker, Port Tresler, New Babbage, right? That's going to be where they start removing armistice zones.
Yep.
Right? Because they've been saying they want to get rid of armistice zones. That's going to be a large step in that direction. And what's really interesting is that if the mission feature team sees that mission as a location under attack module, okay, it'd be very interesting to know what their in-house name for Siege of Orson is. What is their in-house name for Xenothreat is, right? So, because like Xenothreat could be 3 different parts, could be 3 different modules combined into one. There could be their refuel large capital ship module. There could be the go get cargo from a wreck site mission. And then there could be large capital ship fight mission, right?
It's easy for them to just mix and match all these different modules, these little different objectives from each dynamic event, and just kind of mix and match them together, make it a whole new event, and it would be something completely different.
You could combine Siege of Orson, right? Like a Siege of Orson module where pirates have taken over a section of ground territory that has cargo. Take that cargo to refuel a capital ship, right? To be deployed somewhere, go somewhere, or get the cargo, take it to another facility for it to start producing drugs. I mean, or any number of different things. Like there's a particular piece of cargo or equipment that this ship needs to jump to a different system, and there could be a dynamic event of taking that piece of equipment or securing it and then taking it out. I mean, and here's the thing: since it's a module, it doesn't have to be server wide. It doesn't have to be the entire shard wide. It could be just a regular mission that your team picks up, and it would have the same level of detail and polish that these dynamic missions would have.
Well, what you're talking about is an instance. Okay? This is what I'd love to see with Siege of Orson. All right? Where your team just picks up the Siege of Orson by themselves. Right? And do it. And finish it. That's what I'd love to see. I know it probably will not happen in the game. Because they want everybody to be involved. I get it. But I would just love to have one instance where it goes from one section to another, but mix and match it.
The module, with a module, it can. The reason why Siege of Orson will never be a single team or a single org event is because it was built in such a way where the scale for that location was just too large for really a single org, a small team to do, right? They could easily do that same concept, but with several bunkers, right? There could be, 6 bunkers that are out there that you and your org needs to go get, and that can be a single mission that's handed out to a single person, and then they give it to their org mates, and then the org does it.
Yeah, but you see what I mean, right?
Yeah, that's what you mean. I do what you mean, and that's kind of what I'm aiming at. I wouldn't use the word instance, but maybe semantic.
Well,
Sorry about that. But I think we agree. Honestly, I think we absolutely agree. The big benefit to this is those modules could be very easily, because again, the module is about automatically creating the payout and setting up the spawns and the locations.
Think of a module as a preset.
Yeah, exactly. Right. That preset could be, the preset is spawn 9tails or this location, and then the mission team, well, not the mission team, but the Montreal team would say, I want 12 9tails, I want 30 9tails, I want 5 9tails, depending upon, is this intended to be a small team, a large team, or server wide. You could have Xenothreat, but instead of refueling a massive, absolute gigantic javelin, what if you're just fueling an Andromeda? You only need one run, and maybe you don't need to go get cargo from a crashed location. Maybe you need to get it from a store, right? Yeah. Maybe you can get supplies from a station and say, "Hey, we got an Andromeda that's dead in the water. We need you to come pick it up."
And there's your stopwatch.
Yeah,
and
there's your stopwatch.
And there's your component play.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
And what's cool, and what's for me, what makes that magical, is there's not that big of a leap between a Xenothreat module than there would be for a basic mission to rearming a Eclipse or an Andromeda or whatever, right? It would be a very minor thing, a refueling mission for a Gemini.
They're all a part of the same, same system of modules, They're all meant to kind of coincide with each other at some point.
Well,
they're all meant to kind of work with each other.
This is all. I'm sorry, but I gotta say it. SRV, go out with an SRV and bring back a ship. Okay, that's a mission too.
Yeah.
Something I want to add about everything that we were just talking about. This is kind of what I really hope they go in this direction as far as like Arena Commander and stuff like that. So pretty much everything that you guys are talking about, take all those, right? They can use all these modules to make lore stories, right? Or make the lore stories come to life and put them in Arena Commander, because what they said is going to happen in the future here is that these dynamic events, they're only going to happen like once, right? And if you don't get to be a part of that, that's it. They move on to different dynamic events in the future, right? Because it's going to be what's happening now in lore, because you right now being in game is an actual date and time in the lore and what's happening in that moment. So when dynamic events happen, it's going to happen as it is in lore in real time.
And
whether you get to be a part of that or not is going to be.
But
whether you get to be
random.
What was that?
It's not going to be random. It's going to be triggered. So, like for an example, I think it will. I think what they said it will act very similar to this. Essentially, in Elite Dangerous, right? If you're part of an org and you can control the state of a system, right? We won't have that level of control of the state of a system in Star Citizen because they don't want us to. AIs and other bots will prevent that level of control. But essentially what's happening is you can push factions, you can pull factions, and you can set something up where a faction could be in a boom state, a depression state, a famine state. A system could be in a state of war, in a state of boom, prosperity, and based on those states, if a certain state combination occurs, a event occurs, a war, a voting can occur, an election can
Yes.
occur, a rush for supplies that would cause a huge demand would occur, and I think what they're going to do in Star Citizen is have a similar setup based on, has there been a huge glut of supplies? Is there a massive, lack of quantum fuel? Is there disagreements? Has Xenothreat invaded so many times recently that we're about to have a massive all-out war? And based on the state of the system and what's going on, it will automatically trigger localized or server-wide dynamic events, so that once those events are over, yeah, it's over, you missed it. But there's probably another event after that, and the focus would be not less of, oh, I missed that event, and more of, okay, let's have an effect on the system going forward.
What I want to see is, what I'm talking about is mainly the story events that they want to inject into the game, right? Where it's not necessarily going to be just kind of something that happens based off of everybody else's actions within the game. If they purposefully want to place an event, kind of like what they've done with the dynamic events now, and what I would like to see is, if we don't get to play that again in the PU, but we could play it all we want in Arena Commander. Like, you would be able to pick the dynamic events, and this kind of goes into what Shadow was talking about, right? Where you can go in and with your org and play those events with your org if you wanted to, and it kind of like your own little map where you get to recreate it. Either that or just have like a whole server where anybody can join. And you can replay that story that kind of like, it's like a history lesson. You want to go try out something that, or be a part of an event that happened a long time ago in history that you didn't get to be a part of in the PU. You can always replay that within Arena Commander. I think that'd be something that'd be really cool.
You're talking like a live event that happens once, kind of like a live server.
That you would be able to start whenever you want within Arena Commander. So if you wanted to get in with a bunch of friends and be like, hey, I want to do the, I want to play the Vandal Massacre on Terra or whatever it was, right? Not saying that really happened within lore, but they would be able to have that event in there. And let's say, they did that dynamic event once at the PU and people got to play it. And, but it's over now. So in the Arena Commander, you could select that map, select that dynamic event, and get in there with your friends or an entire server of just random people that want to do it.
But that makes sense.
I think a custom private lobby would achieve mostly the same thing. I don't think that would be a good idea if they didn't put effort into, at least initially. Maybe later on that would
Yeah, later on. I'm not.
Yeah,
Yeah.
That'd be something
like
later on.
now-
I'm not saying.
I'm not saying you're saying like now. I'm saying like even like that was something that like after the game's officially launched, that would be cool
Yeah,
if you could
yeah.
play with custom server settings, and they could basically say if you can pre-configure the server settings to be this way, or you put a game mode that would be this historical event. I don't think it's one of the situations where I don't think it's their intention to put dynamic events into the
No,
server.
I don't think
Once-
so either. But I'm
Once
just
that
kind of
background simulation is going, they wanted to let it run, and whatever happens.
yeah. But at the same time, I know they still want their, stories that they've written out or want to write out for the future, because I know there's going to be parts of the lore that they want to steer in a certain direction, to make it a little bit more interesting. Because I think in the beginning of these player activated events that happen throughout the universe, I don't think they're going to be as interesting as we want them to be at first. I think they're going to be fun, but as far as like story or lore wise, I don't think there's really going to be much there, you know? So I think for CIG, if they wanted to really have like a lore and story behind something, a really strong meaning, purpose behind something like that, you know, then I think, yeah. Go ahead, Dark. I know you want to say something.
Take something like the how we voted on the last president of the UEE not too long
Yeah.
ago.
Yeah.
Throw in a dynamic event that lasts for 3 months, like the Ninetales are trying to assassinate the current elected official.
Yeah.
Hey, you get the time to defend against the Ninetales, and at the end of it, it's a one-time done event. Either all the players band together and successfully do it, or we end up with a corrupt leader ran by the Ninetales or something in lore.
That's exactly
It
what
would
I'm thinking
make
of.
that would make that event more special for players that have been playing for a couple of years. Like right now, like we already see an actual YouTube documentary about the original Jumptown event where the glitch was causing the Jumptown and not a dynamic event, right? There's a documentary of like what caused it and how it started and what it was like to be a transporter during that time and what it was like to be a fighter in that time, and that would create almost a player lore that if you were able to just relive it in a simulation or in an arena commander, I think maybe would cheapen it slightly. It's not a bad thing per se, but I think there's something to be said about like, man, a few years ago whenever I was playing this game, we did X, Y, and Z. Isn't that so cool? That's what we're gonna do in the future. Just stick with us. Stick with us, kid.
Your kid, don't get cocky.
Yeah. Greetings,
well-
Full Armor. How you doing?
Hey, old
Let's-
armor.
Oh, whole armor. Nice. Thanks for joining us, man. We got to get you on the podcast here soon. Hey, whole armor, if you got a question for us, let us know. We'll answer it. So we're going to move on to something else that the mission feature team has worked on, which is the new mining missions and the new salvage missions. And what they've said about it essentially is that they're going to have a new legal mission and illegal mission for it. So I don't know how to say the company name, but there's going to be some companies, illegal and illegal ones, where they can sell the rights to salvage claims that'll be in safe areas, like Lagrange points and stuff like that. And you'd be able to go in there and salvage. As far as the illegal side, it would be like, hey, we heard that there's security forces investigating this salvage, this area where there's salvage. It's got a lot of loot in there. You got about like an hour to go there before security forces come and raise hell, essentially.
I think
So-
those would be cool.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And then
Also,
Yeah.
mining missions as well. Yeah.
yeah, the mining missions. So they're calling them Resource Rush, and you're going to be able to buy the rights to a location of an asteroid cluster, and it's going to be. They said they're going to be open contract to everyone, so that could turn ugly, depending on whether people want to work with each other
Mind
or
if I
not.
step in, Joe?
Go ahead.
first?
Go
This
ahead.
one?
Yeah.
'Cause this is another one of those things that got my mind thinking that I'm really
Okay.
excited about. Right?
Go for it.
Let's go for the reclaiming missions first, the salvaging missions first. Remember,
Sure.
these missions are being made in a very modular fashion, right?
Yep.
What happens if me and my Hammerhead and my Polaris and my, Perseus, and we have this big space battle, and we lose or we win right against another warrior? There's something happens, right? Occurs, and now there's just this massive debris field in the middle of space, or near a Lagrange point, or not that far away, but not in the main traffic where it'd be detected. A massive bit of salvage of dead ships sitting there would trigger the salvage module. and all of a sudden you're having these salvage modules popping up everywhere for the entire server that people can pick up, right? And it would it would be a variety of like, were these legal? Was it in an armistice zone? Was it not an armistice zone? Well, was it in like a satellite zone? Was it not in a satellite zone? Was security involved in the fight to begin with? There'd be a whole lot of variables that would go into what kind of mission would spawn from it, right? But you'd have data runners scanning asteroid fields looking for high quality asteroids or clusters of asteroids. They could then sell the data back to one of these data brokers that would then spin up the mission for the mining missions, right? We almost have the potential for a loop, a complete game loop, all the way from using just modules from, service beacon just came up from an attack. Someone goes out there to defend or attack do the attack. Wreckage is created, missions are created, salvages are removed, and if the salvagers are attacked, that would create another mission. Like we almost have, with these two sets of missions, we almost have a complete game loop from beginning to end in a persistent universe. The only thing we're missing now that could properly complete it is data running. I'm stoked, man. I love it.
They're going to have to implement the salvage missions pretty soon on anyway, because if you take the persistence with Xenothreat and the Ninetales lockdown, the amount of ships that are just sitting outside the ports will just clutter it pretty bad. So that would probably be one of those trigger dynamic. You have an hour before the armistice zone re-engages and you can't salvage.
Yeah, at first, people are going to think that, these are going to be, I'm just going to stroll up and I'm going to do a mining mission. I got to clean and everything, and, it's going to be all nice. And you wait until just everything starts triggering. It starts triggering the salvagers. It's going to trigger the PvPers, the PvE ears.
Yeah. The Reclaimer salvages the Vulture that salvaged the salvage ship.
Another thing too is you could also get hired by a company to pull and bring a ship to a location using an SRV that cluttered an area.
He said the word. He said the letters.
Go ahead, Shadow. Talk about your SRV and this kind of thing. And this kind
Let's
of
be
situation.
clear. It's an SRV obsession, and rightly so.
Rightly so.
You got it, man. Okay. We got a sneak peek. Just on Friday.
Go for launch.
Yes.
Go for launch.
So, it's coming.
It might mean nothing, but it also could mean that they're pretty much done.
Yeah, but it's close. And with this, they were talking about, okay, you've got your salvage missions, right? That SRV is going to be the most beneficial ship to bring that salvage close to a place.
And asteroids. Asteroids, too.
And asteroids. Okay? There's your mining missions. There's your salvage missions. Okay? That's the kicker. That's the start. Just like if you say, okay, if this salvage mission is ticked off, right? The SRV is going to go get that ship and bring it to a spot where it can be salvaged. And that's where the payoff comes to bring that ship to that spot. Now, Zook, I see that face, so go ahead and say what you got to say.
Your mind for a second. How do you think cluster of asteroids get clustered on the planet?
SRV.
You think this naturally occurs? SRV. I'm telling you, you'll be able to. I'd be willing to bet two things. With data running, you'll be able to get an SRV, pull rocks, ships together into a cluster of debris to be salvaged, cluster of rocks to be mined, right? And then have the data runner sell the data of that cluster that exists. And the more you have in a single location, the more you're going to get paid for that data,
Yeah.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So it would be almost beneficial if you don't have a big mining ship to still go out and look for mineable rocks with an SRV, pull them together, and then sell that massive cluster to a ship that has an Orion, a Mole, whatever the RSI mining ship's going to be, that can just chew through a lot of those rocks really, really fast.
Well, also, and this is
And
where the MSR, once it gets its data running, working, okay, collect that data of those coordinates, and you can sell it.
and then trigger the salvaging mission. That would trigger the mining mission. That would trigger, I mean, any number of things.
So, do you guys? I want to ask you guys. Do you guys think that has a very good potential? These missions that are coming out here soon. Do you think it's has really good potential to being the kind of like the start of the first data running missions that we get in SC?
I hope so.
Because I feel like they're
so.
close to really getting
We're
in
a
game.
hair's breadth away. I feel like we're just a hair's breadth away from doing it. Like with the mission modules in place, now we have something to plug actual data running into. Before that, before this, like for example, let's say before these modules existed, before these mission modules existed, what would be the purpose of a data runner going out there and finding a rock? Well, the only purpose he can really do is to make money off of it, but at the same time, he can make more money by selling it to a miner that's mining. Well, now they can do it in the background without you having to communicate or put yourself at risk, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's easier to make money, easier to make the mining claims. And to ask Whole Armor to answer his question really quick about if we know this, why CIG doesn't know this, I think they do. I think this is their plan. But to be able to
they
make
know.
this work together, they have to build it. Like, for example, the conversation where a developer said that they didn't call Korea the Korea mission. They called it the Station Under Attack module.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same thing with these. There's going to be a mining claim module, or mining claim module has been detected. This is a salvage claim module, and all these things will plug in and sort of run in the background. I'm almost sure that's their plan. Based on what they said, what they want to do, it would just work so well.
Well, I agree.
It's especially since the more they work on getting persistence to actually persist across all the servers.
Yeah.
So moving all your rocks together and having them actually persist there for a long duration. I think that's one of the things that's kind of holding them back is that, when your ship gets blown up, it doesn't persist for very long to trigger the salvage mission.
Yeah.
Exactly.
With persistence, it will.
It's just like Whole Armor was saying. We know this. Does CIG know? Yes, they do. They know it. They're just waiting to drop it on us.
I think they're pretty rare.
Yeah. They're going to drop it on us eventually. So, yeah. It's a thing. It's just they have to create it. So.
Get people off of Squadron 42 and back to the PU.
Just Squadron 42 done.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
All right, so I think we should move on to the next topic, unless you guys have any final thoughts on the mission feature team, because we're almost at 2 hours here.
Whole Armor question.
That was my favorite.
When?
That was my favorite SCL ever so far, easily.
Yeah, it was
even
great.
better than the BMM.
I
was
enjoyed
so
it.
excited.
I'm right there with you. So we're moving on from the mission feature team to the new Montreal vehicle team, which we don't really have any sort of info on, other than that they're going to be starting in April, because they still got to gather the team. So they're sending someone from CIG, one of their offices, sending them down to Montreal to put together a team up there.
Well, you know what, Joe? Sorry.
What?
When that happens, I think stuff is going to start coming out a whole lot faster.
As far as vehicles, I hope so. I hope so, and that's going to be a part of the one of the questions here for it. But yeah, well, I'll go ahead and lead into that. So, what do you guys think this means for ships and ground vehicles going forward? You know, what are your thoughts on whether you think this is going to kind of like help speed things along? Do you think this means that they're gonna keep working on the BMM, that it's not gonna be shelved for now? And yeah, and if not, I would like to hear your thoughts on that too. So
So typically, from what I've seen and watching the ICs and stuff, they generally don't like to take one ship from one team and hand it to the next. So I don't think they'll work on the BMM personally. I think they're going to leave that to the team that's been working on it.
Yeah.
they're gone.
They're gone. Yeah.
They're gone. The
They
team
did
that's
away with
working
them?
on is no longer in the company.
Yep. So they have to hand it off to someone else.
So then it'll likely be them, I would assume, because they were pretty far along with it, and it's like a flagship for the capital ships.
Because that's the only reason why they were going to, or they even brought it up that it might get shelved, because I believe it was two of the people that were working on it. They ended up leaving for because they move around all the time just naturally. So I guess their contracts with CIG were up or something like that, and they moved on to a different studio. So
I think two of the three people that was working on it just straight up not at CIG anymore.
yeah.
So,
Yep. That's definitely what it seems like.
I'm going to counter that. I don't think that it will be passed off to Montreal. I think that CIG headquarters will retain it and then hand it to replacement members at CIG.
Okay.
That's what I really think will happen, because they already have one guy that's been working on it, so he would lead that team to finish it out.
And that makes sense. That makes a lot of sense.
Not to
I could
say
definitely see that.
Yeah, you guys know my favorite team's Montreal, but
Yeah.
I feel the same.
Yeah. But I
They
mean,
do amazing work.
I agree with Mike on that, because why would you take a ship away from one of the people that have worked on it, and take it away from them, move it somewhere else? I would rather them have the one person that knows what's going on with the ship train up people that they bring to his team and finish it off.
Now to go with this, do you guys think the quality of ships will kind of? Do you think we'll see a difference in quality as the ships
Yes.
come out from Montreal?
Yes.
I want to challenge that for a second here, because I don't think it's going to be as simple as what ship belongs to whose baby. In a very similar way that we have one team that's working on like the mission module, and then you have another team that's working on creating the missions in the verse, right? I think you're going to have one team that's going to be doing the assets for the Crusader line, right? And then you're going to have another team that's going to make specifically the A1, the C1, and the E1, and then the Star Runner and all the different Crusader ships is going to be inside of it. And then the team that creates the base assets that can be plugged together, if you will, the doors, the hallways, the lighting structures, the beds, structures, the bathrooms. You have a team that will make each one of those for each one of the lines. We're going to do Crusader today, then we're going to do MSI, and then we're going to do whatever, the Banu, right? Mm-hmm. They create the base assets, and then the Montreal team will take those assets and then very quickly put them together to make the ships. And there'll probably be some back and forth as of the Banu merchantman has something special, like that big tree, for example, that hasn't already been made. That's something special and might require some extra work. But for the most part, the med beds, the pilot seats, the cargo bay, that stuff has already been built in the aesthetic of the Banu, right? And now the Montreal team can just run with it. Because I think that's what happened with the hospitals, right? I think that's what happened. They made the base Lorville aesthetics, and then handed it off to the Montreal team and said, make an awesome hospital with it. And they added more assets. I'm sure they did a lot of work to it, but that's probably part of why it went so quick. Why they did such amazing work.
That's a good point.
Well, it's a good point. It's a good point.
And that, if I'm right, and again, it's a big if I'm right, right? If I'm right, we could start seeing ships coming out at a faster pace. If I'm right, I could legitimately be wrong here.
Yeah, this.
I still think
Go ahead.
this year and probably into the next one's still going to be really slow because they're working on some of their gold pass features now, like the atmosphere and fire spreading inside ships, which I think since that's a new set of tools they've been working on for the last 6 months to a year now, I still think that's going to kind of drag it out until they can get the quick tools built in like they have for the planets and rivers and all that tech.
I think they're close to being done with, like just finalizing those tools to be able to do while they have those resources within the ship, being able to control them.
Well,
Because they had they showed them off recently, and it looked like it was coming along pretty well.
Which kind of jumps us back a little bit to when we were talking about the being able to shoot someone inside your own ship. I remember them talking about one of the things they needed for capital ships was the ability to kick players off the ship and shut corridors. So I think that kind of ties into it as well.
Did they go into detail when they went over engineering in the system resources piece? Last time they said the the Hammerhead's going to be the first one to get it.
Yep.
Did they go into detail as far as what resource they're going to be using in that tier 0? Is it just power?
Yeah.
Or is it also
I think it might just be
atmosphere?
power management first, maybe.
Yeah.
Okay.
Power management.
I didn't remember. That's why I asked.
I think, yeah.
we got a statement
been a little bit of time.
from Whole Armor. Turbulent in Montreal has a better grasp, understanding of the scope of the game, and they know what they are doing. This will increase development big time, and they are working on build new teams within.
So, I'm gonna step in here. So this is basically what we've been asked. What we've been answering is the future pacing of ship releases. This is where we're at. I think it will get faster. Definitely with the smaller to medium ships, and depending on how many people are employed, body count's a big thing. So you might have enough body count where you can separate people into different categories. Like you might have a team that handles 2 manufacturers, like Crusader and Origin, or you might have one team that does that, and it might be 3 or 4 people per team. I could totally see that. And they'll build out all of the assets, the modules, the ships themselves, and get them released. The counter to Dark's argument about things like fire spreading, deformation, the only thing you really need to define is a class in game programming. You define a class, and then you define the properties of that said class, and you nest it. What'll happen is they'll build the ship, and inside the ship will be a room that'll be a class, and then they'll have nested properties that exist within that class, such as deformation, lighting, air quality, atmosphere, whatever. It'll exist nested in there. And what'll eventually happen is when the systems get turned on here at the base level, it goes through the rest of them. Now, another thing Montreal team might end up doing first is going back through all the backlog of ships or the old ships and getting them up to date to the modern standard that will require those classes to be enabled. That's another big thing. Remember, they said it.
I can see that very easily, actually. That's a good point.
Yeah. And I just answered Whole Armor's question. Yes.
Yes.
Basically,
Yes.
Montreal is probably first task is going to be bring up all ships to modern standard.
I agree.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I think that we'll see that pretty fast too. I think with Montreal's track record, Montreal has done such a hell of a good job that I think you put them on any task. I think that Montreal will be the biggest third-party team that CIG has invested in a controlling share of that will end up producing majority of the game in the next 5 years
Well,
in the PU.
didn't Montreal create the Javelin Wreck?
Yeah.
That,
Oh, they did?
that was their intro.
Oh, wow.
No, their intro was
When did that get put in the game?
been a while.
Been a while.
Because that was before I started playing, I think.
Actually, Turbulence started off doing Spectrum stuff, and they only did website stuff at first, and then it grew. Then they got brought in to do Derelict and missions. That's why they're so good at Derelicts. They've been doing it since the Javelin.
Well,
And
Whole Armor says that the Javelin was brought into the game 2016.
Oh, I see.
yeah, the original Montreal team was much smaller back then. Yeah, I don't think people would call it Turbulent then. I think they were a legitimate part of CIG. Then I believe now. Please correct me if I'm wrong. Please double check my data on this. I do believe eventually they broke off and became something of their own. But
I'm going to need a dynamic event for that Javelin, that Wreck Javelin.
yeah, absolutely. That's another thing too. That's probably going to come up. There'll probably be a reclaim a piece of data on the Javelin that's
They need.
PvE.
That's assuming that the Javelin is complete, though, because they would need the interior if they wanted you to be able to kind of do anything with it.
Well, they could use the one interior that they already have for Invictus Week. That's the only section left in it. Yeah, that's all they have to use.
Whatever they got done, just those specific rooms or whatever. Yeah, they could do something with that.
They were asked in the SCO if they would rework the Javelin. And they said it would take a lot of time to rework the Javelin Wreck.
Oh, yeah.
So...
Oh, I'm sure it would, yeah.
If they do it, they don't, from what they said, they don't have any plans to do it now. But if they did do it, it would take a bit.
Mm-hmm.
So...
I think they could get handed off the 600i rework.
Maybe
if it wasn't already what I feel like. I feel like a lot of those ships, though, won't get handed off. I agree with Dark on this. I don't think a lot of those ships are going to get handed off. I think those ships are going to get finished by the teams that are currently working on them. I think Montreal's...
Well, 600i rework isn't being worked on anybody except for concept artists right now, I think.
No, it's in gray.
Well, the concept art is done. They just have to have the time to schedule it and get it in.
They've graded.
Yeah.
Did they? It's in gray bot? Oh, okay.
Yeah, we've seen it in gray during one of the SELs.
Oh, yeah. True.
Okay.
So
all right.
It's been at least in gray box since, like, I think either November or October.
Yeah, since Citizen Con.
I still think the 600i rework is going to be after something like the Perseus or Polaris, since those are needed for Squadron 42.
Maybe. I don't know.
I mean,
yeah, that's a big unknown. I don't know.
We're speculating like crazy.
Yeah, it's a gamble.
It is.
Yeah.
I think you have too many people isolated to Squadron 42 that will probably work those things. That either maybe have already worked it or are working on it, and then PU stuff is independent for what little PU gets. I think that's how they're playing that game, but I could be wrong on that.
From what they talked about in one of the last, I say last, it's been quite a while. They generally take everything from Squadron 42 and then port it over to the PU. I thought that was the way they were working it.
That's the way they were
Not
working
everything.
it. Not everything. They've definitely changed that stuff up, especially with the leaked videos and artistic vertical slices that we've seen. Like, for example, there was an Aurora that was heavy armored.
Mm-hmm.
That was not in the PU at all. You'll never see that in the PU.
Right.
Yeah, they said that they're not going to add stuff like that in the PU.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you're going to be able to tinker with, components and stuff like that, but not to that extent where you can get things out of a junkyard and just weld everything together.
Yeah.
And a lot of those vertical slices also showed ships that we have never seen. Like there was this Argo midget, not midget, but tiny SRB that was there. There was also this. A lot of the band new ships were actually active and working. We know that the Van Duel exists inside the PU. So like a lot of that stuff exists inside of Squadron 42, and it will not come over to the PU for a long time. But
I know. I know that they teased. Well, there's been leaks of a MPUV that's a variant. It's like a mining variant. It's got its own mining arm. I think we've been waiting to hear stuff from that for a couple of years now because it's been leaked. But that might just be a Squadron 42 thing too. Because I know they have a bunch. They have a bunch of different MPUV variants that we haven't seen yet.
Yeah. Whole armor,
but they've been leaked.
I think that Squadron 42 is a carrot on a stick excuse to use to explain why SC development is taking so long. They have used Squadron 42 excuse before.
Ooh, that's a hot take.
Yeah. I do see people's criticism and their willingness to express that. And to be clear, I don't think it's an excuse. I mean, if you're going to develop a game, it's going to take a long time, especially when you're doing stuff that is completely done from scratch or reworked. Look, as much as people want to say, they scratched CryEngine apart and rebuilt it from the bottom up.
True.
To do what they needed to do. Yeah, that's no small task. That takes forever to do.
Hello, old Gamer Z. Welcome. Yeah.
Whether I think that where the excuse is not telling Chris Roberts no sometimes.
I don't think they got a choice. I don't think they can tell him no.
Yeah.
I would.
He's gonna be like, just figure it out.
Like, if you work at CIG, you tell him no.
I will.
I don't think anybody wants to tell him no. I think they hear his ideas and go, shit, I want to do that too.
Oh, don't get me wrong. Like, his ideas are phenomenal. Like, he's basically a modern day Mozart with video game space sims specifically. Like, he can paint you a mental picture of how something should work, and it's great. But he exaggerates on it, and I think he overdoes it, and I don't think he knows when to say, okay, we need to stop here.
And he's over optimistic.
Yeah, he's over optimistic. Which, I mean, that is where the whole people making excuses, or people accusing the excuse, or creating the excuse carrot on a stick that Holm pointed out. I think people have a right to be upset and think that way because of how long it's taking, because they spent money on the game. Holmer, you got my vote for believing that way, but at the end of the day, we only know what they tell us. So
I think they overcomplicated things for themselves. Now they got a lot on their plate, and now it's just a slow trickle of all that stuff kind of coming in. So it sucks.
There's nothing to keep in mind. Like, it's been 4 years since we've seen any actual visual hard content from Squadron 42. Like, it's time, right? So we don't know what the state of the game is. They don't know if they've had to rework a lot of stuff, right? We don't know if they're adding. We don't know if it's having scope creep. We don't know any of that.
We know they're reiterating a lot of things and redoing it because they're trying to get it better than what it is now. Kind of like what they're doing with the PU, where, they kind of like the tiers.
Well, the technology that they used originally is outdated.
Yep.
So they've got to update it. I mean, I'm not trying to be the white knight, but
they're recently redoing the animation captures, I believe, the mocap and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And that's because back when they first did it, it was good for its time. But if you looked at it now, I'm sure it looks kind of wonky, maybe a little outdated. You go back in some of the older games that came out when they were first doing those animations. You look at it now, it doesn't look that pretty.
Right.
So
that's what really bothers me about Squadron 42. This is one thing that I am really not happy about. that was with CIG. Like I'll say a lot of their stuff's magic and what they're trying to do is really cool, especially with the PU. But with Squadron 42, all the reworking a lot of this stuff. Okay, great. It needs to be worked for the modern era. Okay, is it going to be done and released before the work they're redoing today has to be
Gets
redone in
outdated.
another 4 years?
Yeah.
Yeah, gets outdated
Like at
again.
some
Yeah.
point in time, you have to
Yeah.
make that cutoff
Well-
and say this is finished, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Chris Roberts is never good with that.
Yeah. You
I
could
think-
always go back and redo something after the fact, or you could do episodic releases. You can say we're going to release episodes 1, 2,
A
and 3.
remaster.
And then later down the road, kind of come in and polish things and call it like a remaster. But
Well, there is a thing where you future proof as much as you can in the moment as you're doing it.
Yeah.
You know, and currently we have all the tools, and we've done mocap and all the animations long enough, and essentially with all the other tools that they've made too, they've worked with everything long enough to understand kind of what happens over time, how it's going to look over time, and they get a certain amount of future proofing along with that. They can,
But
the
that can
longer
only
they've
go
worked with
so far.
something, the more predictions they can make with how it's going to turn out in the end.
Sure, but even so, that still goes back to the point that this is iterative development. You develop the product you want in the time that you have it. You release it, and if you want to make it better later, have more time to do it instead of being crunched at all corners. It doesn't matter to me if we got 2 chapters back in the day. We just got 2 chapters. That's it. And we played it. And they said, okay, this is kind of what we're going for. Play it, and then we're going to remaster it later. No problem. Because there's things. Good.
No, I remember when I first got into Star Citizen, I've heard talk of the chapters being released, one by one throughout time as it goes on. And I know that's not the case, but I mean, even if they did that, however many chapters, throughout the year, they could totally do something like that, and it would work pretty well, I think.
So, yeah, there was a game back in the day called Siren that released in chapters, and it had 12 chapters, I think, and it released bi-weekly. And they did it that way because when they released the next episode, whenever something got upgraded in the game, it proactively or reactively upgraded the previous chapter. Say it was a different type of asset. Say like it was a house asset that just didn't look great. They later on updated the original version. Same thing happens when you have an object or a pawn inside of a game engine. You update that mesh, for example, with the newer mesh, but using the same pawn class, it will update the entirety of everything. And this is what you call patchwork or chunk work. You just deliver chunks that create patches.
Okay.
Does anybody know? Just a point of trivia, just out of curiosity, what percentage of CIG is almost exclusively working on Squadron 42?
No.
I don't know the percentage.
I believe it's definitely lion's share, if I recall correctly.
Most of them.
I've heard it's been like 80%.
Because that's my impression as well.
80 something, 90 something percent.
Yeah. That's my impression.
Yeah.
I mean, why do you think there's a skeleton team working on certain
PU.
aspects of the game on the PU?
That's probably why Montreal's getting more and more stuff, because Montreal's proving themselves so damn good that they can handle it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think so too. Whole Armor said,
Yeah. I was going to hit
back
that
in the
joke.
day.
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry.
That's all right.
Back in the day, assets in Star Citizen was first priority to help develop Squadron 42. After 2018, the role has reversed, whereas Squadron 42 needs assets so Star Citizen can evolve.
Yeah, you do that to avoid spoilers. That's the primary
Essentially. Yeah. I remember when they came out and announced they were going to be doing that. That was a big thing that they've also talked about along with that is spoiler stuff. Yeah.
Okay. We
Yeah.
good on this? We good on this topic?
Oh yeah, yeah. We talk too much.
Well, as far as that, we have a couple questions that Darko wanted to ask here. Or Dark Harbinger, we call him Darko. For anybody
Yeah.
that doesn't know.
Johnny.
So the first question that he brought up is he wants to know everybody's thoughts on do we think we're on track for Pyro this year?
Nah.
There you go. There you go. There you go, Dark.
It's
Yeah.
a CIG. No.
Well, go ahead, Dark. Let's hear
Oh,
your thoughts on
I
it.
figured it probably wouldn't be for at least another year or two because we still need quite a few more ships for it.
Yep.
And they said server meshing too. So
Yep.
they would need server meshing first.
Anybody else can answer. Sorry.
Maybe it's
I was waiting for Zook because Zook looked like
I
he
saw.
I was trying to think of like what because that's a good question, and I'm leaning towards yes, we're on track. The ever negative Nancy over here thinks we're we're on track, and I only say that because there's not a lot that we need to know. There's not a lot that we need besides server meshing. If we have these mission modules get in place, we have the whole seeking in place. The abandoned merchant's not that far away from being done, right? And they could do. And here's the thing: the first test of server meshing will be with Pyro, right?
I think so
So-
too. Yeah. It would
The
make perfect
question,
sense.
not the dynamic server meshing, the static server meshing is going to be with Pyro. So
Yeah.
if they get PES, the counter factor taken care of, the whole C is supposed to come out this year, and the whole C is definitely one of those ships that could be potentially a inter-system trade ship, right? Very easily, along with the merchantman. Aside from the only thing beyond that we need to get the banding merchantman going easily is basically boarding missions for civilians, right?
Yeah.
For NPCs to go on board your ship and off your ship. If they can get those taken care of, that's basically all the prerequisites that I can think of for Pyro. And I know they have said before, I don't remember where I heard this, but I want to say they were actually doing a lot of work on the Spirit series. And one of the things they was working on the Spirit series was specifically the E1, which was the NPC boarding and getting off board.
Yep.
It would not surprise me if that's one of the features that they're going to announce for 319. Again, that's pure speculation. But if we're going to go based on what they have, what they don't have, and is it possible, I could see NPCs being in 319 and then server meshing in 4.0. And if that happens, it would still be a relatively bare bones game, but we could make it. But see, we could considerably make it this year. I definitely wouldn't say it's guaranteed. I definitely wouldn't say it's even odds are, but I would say we're looking like it's possible.
I think it's next year, but I think we'll get at least PTU this year.
318.
Yeah, it'll be 318.
4.0 will be on the year review, but not released this year.
So I'll go and throw in with that question that we just had. We somebody in here mentioned the whole C, kind of going with it, but the what ships do you think are needed for Pyro to release in 4.0 essentially? Because of course the whole C, but anything else?
BMM.
You think the BMM is needed?
I think it's needed.
I don't know.
Okay.
Maybe. I would say there's a 50-50 chance on that one that it's needed. But
I think Tony Z's stuff is needed, at least in some form or capacity.
Even at a base level.
Yeah.
It only does.
Just a start of whatever he's working on.
Agreed.
I hate to say this, and I don't want to. I don't want to get any feathers riled up, but I think ships like the not the Expanse. No, yeah, the Expanse, the Odyssey, the Galaxy are needed for that large travel time. I think
Liberator.
Liberator, absolutely.
Oh
Is needed.
yeah.
Yeah.
The Lib
Like
could probably
Vulcan?
wait.
the Liberator, you think you can wait? I think
They
it's going to serve a massive role. That's I think it's honestly it's kind of needed now almost.
I think it
The
is
Lib-
needed now, especially for Jump Town.
The
Yeah.
Liberators are only going to be needed really when they get rid of claim times. When they get the ability for you to call a ship to your location, and they get rid of claims and they submit a tier 0 of insurance, that's when you start needing the Liberator. But we're a ways off for that, and that's definitely not required for Pyro. You could do it where you fly to Pyro and claim your ship.
They said they're getting rid of claim time.
Eventually, yeah. They want to make it where two things. One, they want to make it a viable option, maybe even a cheaper option, to go get your ship with an SRV, tow it back, and repair it. Buy new modules for it, fix it up, that kind of thing. They want that to be a viable option that's considered a more favorable option rather than claiming your ship. They said they want to start moving away from claiming.
Okay.
Now again, will that be
I
this
missed
year or
that.
not? Who knows? Yeah, will that be this year? Who knows? But if that's the case, they're still probably a little ways out from that. And they again go back to what the question is this needed for Pyro? I would say no, not initially.
I think the Vulcan will be.
Oh yeah. That's a whole different
Why?
That's a whole different ball game right there though too.
Fueling for one, like the Starfarer. And then the Vulcan's also a medium repair ship, if I believe. So that might be a mechanic we get after Pyro's release. But I think that because if I remember correctly, Pyro is supposed to be huge, and there's only one real station out there, right? And refueling is going to be a necessity, or close to a necessity as can be. I think the Vulcan would definitely be a ship that you could argue that could be a required ship for that time.
So all you have is a
Station.
Starfarer.
Yeah, Ruin
at the moment.
Station is your only station there.
Yeah,
That
your
we
only
know
main
of.
Station.
That we
It's
know of.
your only main station right now. There's going to be a lot of other outposts that you could potentially refuel and repair at a higher cost. But to use them, either it's going to be hard to use them, expensive to use them, or you may have to have reputation with the owner of that station prior to being able to use them.
Well, the thing about that station is it passes hands. So, from what I gather,
so
it's going to keep changing. So you're going to have to get a lot of reputation with a lot of factions.
There was something that was leaked, or you can actually data mine it now. Anybody can, where they actually have, essentially, I believe it's in Squadron 42 probably right now, or something. Maybe not Squadron 42, but it's in there, where they actually have Lagrange points and the stations along with it and rest stops in Pyro, labeled as Pyro in certain parts of Pyro. But I mean, I don't know in what capacity they could be ruined, just like Ruined Station. Could be that they're not inhabited anymore, maybe, or if they are inhabited by certain factions,
I mean, Lagrange points is a natural phenomenon, so I could definitely see that. Lagrange points are not man-made.
But when you look, so it says Lagrange point rest station, like the rest and the what is it, the relax and whatever. It
might just be a hab. It might just be a pure hab.
It could be, yeah. We don't know really anything about it. I just thought I'd bring that up because I thought it was pretty interesting. Because at the same time, I thought we were just getting Ruined Station, but according to the data mine stuff, it seems like we could be getting others too, potentially.
Okay.
That would be interesting.
But
Do we
But yeah,
have any other stuff?
no, that's it for I guess us. Now, if now's everybody's last chance in the chat. If you have any questions, you got a couple minutes to kind of type it out, and we'll answer it.
Yeah.
But
So feel free. Ask
mhm.
on any topic that we covered this evening. Please feel free to ask.
Are there any final thoughts from any of you guys on anything that we talked about? Dark?
No, we're just kind of discussing CCUs and gifted ships counting towards concierge in the chat.
Okay.
When it comes to things for concierge, it generally has to be, as far as I know, it has to be all new money. So even if you have a ship, you melt it, you have store credit, you use that store credit to CCU another ship, it doesn't build up your concierge.
Mm-hmm.
Correct.
You have to put new money in for it to count.
Yeah.
Either new money, buying ships, buying a merch, or buying a subscription.
Yeah. Also, whole armor. Your question about gifted ships can't be melted for store credit. They can be, but the odds of you getting the full credit for gifted ship is really unlikely. If the ship is valued at say $300, but the person only spent $230 via some backwards CCU route, you'll get the 230 and not the 300. You'll still get store credit, but you kind of won't know until you try how much store credit you'll get.
You can actually start the melt process on a ship that you've been gifted. It'll tell you the
before
amount.
you do it. Yeah.
Yeah, it'll tell you the amount before it makes you confirm it.
Okay.
And then it does give you a buyback token, but only for the initial ship they used to CC you up to whatever you had.
Mm-hmm. That's what people don't think about too. People end up making mistakes with things and like, but yeah.
Ken Claudio, any Blade pilots? I'm going to say this. The Blade is a beautiful, beautiful ship. I have one. I bought one in game. And that is one alien ship that if I really, really wanted it, when it comes to Alien Week, I would snag that ship up. Yeah, shit. I said it.
They're doing a whole rework on all of them. I guess they already did it in the Vandal ships in Squadron 42, and we're just waiting to see them port it over. But I remember they had a whole episode IIC about it. And I thought the concepts that they shared would look pretty cool.
But that's one ship. That's one alien ship that I would get.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, anything else before I end it?
Nope.
No.
Everybody good?
Nope.
Okay.
Yeah, that's it.
All right. Well, Dark Harbinger, I appreciate you being a guest. It was fun.
I appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, you're always welcome back in the future.
Always, man.
To everybody else out there in the chat that contributed to the chat and watched and hung out for the duration of the podcast, and at least these things go a little bit long sometimes. I appreciate you guys being there. Please like and subscribe. Podcasts are going to, for now on, be on the Snowbird Meeting Room podcast channel. We just got locked out of streaming for 24 hours. That's the only reason why we're doing it right now on this channel. But yeah, please like and subscribe on that channel as well. And next week, we'll be doing the same thing, either Mondays or Tuesdays at 4:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. So join us. And with that, thanks again, everybody. And see you next.
See you in the verse.
7.